the last milk you're offered is one from a cow, which I find quite entertaining. I took my dad down to London. We ended up in this coffee shop. My dad's a Yorkshireman, and we didn't know it was a vegan place, and he's gone through all the milks, and he's had to leave because he couldn't settle with a soy milk or something like that. I just want it from a cow.
Talk to me a bit about nutrition, healthy eating, or lack of. I know you've got a bit of a background in sport. 800 metres, you said you used to run?
Yeah, I used to compete. So being a teenager into my early 20s, if I could have done anything other than what I do now, I would have loved to have been a professional athlete. But I tore my patella tendon and that kind of stuff. But, always loved food, always loved fitness. But it was, especially back then, like 15 years ago, all you'd see in any fitness magazine or whatever you're trying to read up on getting fit and what to eat was boiled chicken, boiled rice, the chicken and broccoli brigade. But because I loved food, it was how do I make something that is delicious enough for me to eat as a foodie, if you want to say, and also my family to eat, but good enough for me to fuel my body as an athlete, a runner. How do I make a chicken tikka masala, for example, that's actually healthy enough for me to eat, but tastes amazing enough to want to eat it? And that was just a style that I guess I gradually adapted over the years. I've got a big partnership coming up with Men's Fitness magazine soon, and we're going to do some proper food, but good enough to eat if you're meeting your training goals. But I've never been one for counting calories. I think I just keep it really simple. Eat fresh food, buy, fresh stuff, everything in moderation. A bit of what you fancy does you good, and I think you've got to treat yourself. And for me, it's about having a healthy relationship with food and not cutting certain things out. I don't think you should have guilty pleasures, because I think food is a joy. It is a pleasure. It's one of the greatest joys in life. And I think it's a shame that we've got access to so many beautiful ingredients and the most incredible restaurants, especially in London, where they're serving things that probably aren't healthy, but that's a treat and that's a joy. And that's one of my big joys. And to see people go, I'm not eating gluten. Why, are you celiac? No. I saw it on Instagram. Well, come on. You got to enjoy it as well.
Everybody's gluten-free now, aren't they?
Gluten-free, you try and order a coffee and you're
lactose intolerant.
The last milk you're offered is one from a cow, which I find quite entertaining. I took my dad down to London. We ended up in this coffee shop. My dad's a Yorkshireman, and we didn't know it was a vegan place, and he's gone through all the milks and he's had to leave because he couldn't settle with a soy milk or something like that. I just want it from a cow.
Tell me, one of the excuses given by people to eat unhealthy and to use takeaways, etc., is that eating healthy at home is too expensive and it's too complicated. First of all, tell me why that's bollocks, and then give me 4 or 5 top tips for someone who is unhealthy, out of shape, and living on takeaways because they think it's too complicated and too expensive. How can they do it quickly and easily?
I think one way to cut down a massive load of cost is, regardless of your main meal, stop buying the expensive, shitty snacks that you eat in between. And I know it's everything in moderation, but some people are caning that stuff, the chocolate bars, the rubbish. If you just stop buying that and it's not in the house, you're not going to eat it. And just don't buy as much of the rubbish stuff. And then when it comes down to tips for cooking, if you're just using fresh stuff, like right now, get some asparagus, put a poached egg on top, bit of salt and pepper. I bet you that's less expensive than the 12 quid takeout or something,
I was going to say, what kind of budget should someone expect to be able to make a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner for if they're going to cook it themselves, buy fresh ingredients?
Great question. Depends on what you want to actually make. But if you look at,
I've got no money.
Yeah.
I'm on minimal income. Cost of living crisis. Struggling with the kids. I want to feed a family of 4. Something tasty enough to enjoy, but money is so tight.
Yeah, cool. Chana masala, chickpea curry, something I love from a takeaway actually. Chickpeas, 50 to 60, 70 pence a tin, depending on where you go. A couple of onions, sweat them down, some ginger, some garlic, some powdered spices. Yeah, they're £1 each for a jar in the supermarket, but they're going to last you a few months. Cook the spices down, throw in your chickpeas, some fresh tomatoes, tomato puree, simmer it for 20 minutes, squeeze a lemon. What's that? 3 quid, feeds 4 people, big thing of nice rice with it. Chickpeas packed full of fibre, protein, really simple. Beans and pulses are a great way to keep the cost down if you're looking for protein, also nourishment. But then when it comes down to buying chicken, and we talk about adaptability of recipes, swap out your chicken breasts for drumsticks. I was in the shop earlier, I saw really good quality packet chicken drumsticks, £1.50. Chicken breast, £4. So I think it's been able to make suitable swaps and just being confident enough to make those swaps.
And I guess where you buy the stuff from makes all the difference as well. I mean, just a anecdotal example. 3 or 4 years ago, my mate and I, we did Rich House Poor House, the TV show, and we were given the budget of the lady that we swapped with to live on. So we had £67.13 to live on for the week. And one of the things that we filmed, because you obviously got 5 or 6 scenes that we've got to film. One of them was going to the supermarket to do the shop so that we could cook for her mother that night and have some food in the house for us. Now, it wasn't realistic because obviously, to film, you've got to get permission to film. So the only place we could film in was almost like a local spa shop. And we went and bought the ingredients, and we've done in half the week's budget because we're buying the local spa shop, because we're paying £4 for cheese instead of 80p. We're paying £3 for butter, and I guess it's almost like a false / hypothetical example, but just goes to prove the point that if you don't plan, and if you buy these things in the wrong place, like an ex of mine, a few years ago, she didn't have much money, and when she used to cook for me, she'd make the most mega meals, but she'd be going to Aldi for the vegetables as opposed to me going to Marks and Spencer's for them, and she's making something mega. Well, it's mega because she could cook and I couldn't, but she's making it for £2.50. I've been making it for £25 just because it's a Marks and Spencer's tomato versus an Aldi tomato, which ultimately is exactly the same thing.
Yeah, it's a great one, and I think you've just got to shop smart. I think that's a big thing I always say to people, and everyone's budget is different, but the planning, that word there, I think is key, because the last thing you want to do is buy stuff. The amount of food that goes in the bins at home is actually ridiculous, and that's money. I always say to people, when you throw that half a pack of herbs in the bin, just pretend you're throwing 50p in the bin, or you didn't finish all your chicken. Well, that pack of chicken was £4, another £2 in the bin. So if you actually write a meal plan, it sounds so basic, but we spoke about keeping things simple. Monday to Sunday, what you're going to eat every day. Are there some ingredients that could go over 2 meals? There's a big section on that in my book, on actually planning for success. And I think a lot of it is, yes, where you buy it, but how much is going in the bin and you're rebuying stuff on different days.
I can tell you I'm the worst for that, because one of my obsessions, if you like, is having a nice full fridge. But having a nice full fridge is obviously at the complete expense of being efficient. I kind of want everything in there for when I want it in there, but then you just know by definition that you're chucking 50% of it away.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
It's a tough one, and I think people should get better at understanding that you don't need the full fridge every day and being able to use what you've got. And again, if people have a bit more confidence, you can get to the end of the week and see, there's a few bits and pieces in the fridge. I don't need to go and buy anything else because I've got the ability to cook something from scratch. But I heard a stat, kind of changing the topic, but back to your first point about health and nutrition and food, that the majority of people that are malnourished now are actually clinically obese, is a stat that I heard, which really shocked me to think, a lot of people are overfed but undernourished. So there's obviously money going somewhere, and they're saying they can't eat healthy, but that's just something I heard.
It's too many hot cross buns.
Yeah, well, that's it. I saw you're quite liberal with the butter on there.
You think that was liberal? I thought I was reining it in.